The light of creation, like a delicate veil, still enveloped the earth. This shroud, woven from pure perfection, gently embraced the entire world. The earth lay pristine, untouched by pain, war, or destruction. Humanity walked hand in hand with God in harmony, in a world where beauty, tranquility, and innocence reigned. Yet somewhere in the deepest shadows, changes were stirring. The perfect balance, seemingly unshakable, was poised to collapse. The garden, the cradle of all existence, was truly a paradise without equal. Majestic mountains soared skyward, the seas danced with the wind, and the deep blue sky reflected the Creator's glory. Animals lived in harmony with each other, as if their souls were one with the earth. Adam, gazing in wonder at the marvels of creation, felt at home. Eve, by his side, graced the world with her smile, an integral part of it, and animals approached her trustingly. Paradise was a place where time seemed to stand still, where the morning light never faded. Adam, turning his gaze to Eve, smiled instinctively. He said, "Yes, all of this was given to us. We are not merely created, we are loved." Eve's eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow, but of awe, at the splendor of the world God had created for them. Adam understood that creation was not just a gift, but a reflection of God's love for them. In that moment, everything seemed perfect, without a shadow of doubt or fear. But somewhere in the depths of Eden, the seed of discord had already been sown. A quiet, subtle whisper penetrated Eve's heart. The serpent slithered, winding its way between the trees. Its beauty was blinding, and its voice, as soft as a breeze, planted a seed of doubt. Did God really say that? It was a cunning temptation that, like a wildfire, consumed the woman's heart. Where boundless trust once reigned, doubt now took root. The choice was made, and by disobeying the divine command, they fell. The world changed in an instant. Eden, that once perfect sanctuary, became a distant memory. Man and woman were cast out of the garden, and a flaming sword was placed at the entrance, symbolizing the rift between earth and heaven. They were left alone, stripped of God's presence, aware of their vulnerability and the profound depth of the sin they had brought into the world. Paradise was lost forever, and with it, the innocence of Adam and Eve. When Eve gave birth to Cain, her eyes reflected pain, and a deep sorrow settled in her heart. The birth of a child should be a celebration, but now joy was overshadowed by the knowledge that the world would never be the same. Sin permeated their lineage, and future generations would bear the burden of this fateful choice. Cain grew up proud, alienated, and deep down, increasingly distant from God's grace. Abel, by contrast, was quite different. Humble and devout, he dedicated his life to serving the Lord. With reverence and awe, he offered the Creator the best of his flock. Abel the shepherd brought the finest of his flock to the Creator. "I will sacrifice the best of my sheep," he would say, understanding that to honor God, one must give what is most valuable. Cain, the farmer, watched silently, filled with bitterness. He brought God the remnants of his harvest, fruits of the earth, without special care or love. He kept the best for himself and offered the worst to God. In making his offering, Cain felt he was merely fulfilling a formal obligation, not performing an act of sincere worship. God accepted Abel's offering, seeing his sincerity, but rejected Cain's. The difference was clear. Abel offered gifts from a pure heart and with faith, while Cain gave only what he did not need. Sin began to take root in his heart. When Cain saw his offering rejected, anger consumed him. Envy, pride, and bitterness merged as one. He looked at his brother with hatred. The field, which should have been a place of growth and life, became the stage for his wrath. Cain, consumed by rage, approached Abel. Silent and unrepentant, he raised his hand against his brother. The field, once a symbol of fertility, became the tomb of the righteous. Cain killed Abel, and his brother's blood cried out from the ground, echoing in God's ears. The silence that followed was deep and heavy, as if creation itself paused to mourn the loss. God gazed upon this tragic scene, and for a moment, the face of his presence was veiled. Cain, marked with the seal of guilt, fled, leaving behind the pain-filled gaze of his mother and the sorrow in his father's eyes. He wandered the world, which now knew the weight of sin. Life continued, but it was no longer the same. Evil spread, and Abel's blood cried out for justice. Adam and Eve had another son, Seth. His descendants, though they bore the burden of pain and the fall, still sought God. However, sin continued to take root in successive generations, and humanity moved towards an uncertain future, drifting further from the original purity of creation. Human knowledge expanded. The first cities arose on fertile plains. Tribes grew into great nations, and people began to dominate the land. They tamed animals, worked metals, created music and works of art. But despite all progress, corruption continued to spread like a shadow, darkening every aspect of life. People began to name the winds, create images, build altars and temples. True relationship with God was lost, and sacrifices were made without soul, as Cain had done. Evil grew, and the seeds of sin were deeply rooted in humanity. Tribes and cities continued to expand. But what happened in Eden now seemed a distant legend, a story people had almost forgotten. Sin, which began with a simple choice, spread throughout the world, becoming part of everything humanity touched. Only a few called upon the name of the Lord. In a world increasingly distant from goodness and purity, people's hearts hardened. In those days, the world plunged into darkness, and people's hearts grew increasingly cruel. Among those who still held the memory of God, Lamech stood out, a descendant of Cain, known for his sharp words and ruthless deeds. He proudly proclaimed his strength and thirst for vengeance, as if they were trophies. "I have killed a man for wounding me. If sevenfold vengeance is due for Cain's blood, then my vengeance will be 77-fold." Lamech became a symbol of pride and destruction, the embodiment of endless retribution. Revenge became his sole creed, and he infected those around him with it. The era was characterized not only by a spirit of pioneering, but also excessive human selfishness. Humanity, detaching itself further from its true nature, began to see power as the only means of asserting itself in this world. But even in this world, full of violence and pride, other names emerged. Jabal, the ancestor of those who dwelt in tents and raised livestock, knew nomadic life, but also dependence on the land and sky. Jubal, a skillful master of melodies, crafted flutes from bone and harps with strings from plants that grew around his native village. Tubal-Cain, a smith, mastered the art of metalworking and weapon creation, forging spears and swords that became a symbol of both humanity's ascent and its fall. Art and destruction were born simultaneously, in a paradoxical intertwining of the beauty of creation and the destructive power that people now craved. As cities grew, people began to unite into kingdoms. Chiefs became kings, and palaces of crude stone rose in the valleys, like monuments to human vanity. Lavish feasts and sacrifices became an integral part of daily life. Altars were erected not to God, but to idols of power, wealth, and glory. People once humble and devoted to worship now found themselves in a vicious cycle of self-worship. The search for the divine was replaced by an insatiable craving for self-exaltation. From the heights of heaven, the Lord observed this sad transformation. The chasm between humanity and God grew wider. The Lord saw how faith yielded to power and how people's hearts grew increasingly insensitive to truth. The pursuit of spiritual enlightenment was displaced by arrogance and a lust for dominion. The connection with the Creator gradually eroded, yet a small spark of hope remained. In the days of Enosh, changes occurred. People, weary of their own moral decay, once again began to call upon the name of the Lord. This moment, though insignificant compared to the vast abyss of corruption, brought with it a faint breeze of hope. In the hearts of the righteous, the fire of faith still glowed, though weak, like embers in the dark. Humanity was lost, but there were still those who sought it, those who remembered the Creator. However, the world would never be the same. Trees seemed less green, the skies less clear. Animals became more cautious and distant, as if sensing the decay that had gripped the world. The earth, seized by anxiety, reflected the pain of the sins sown by humanity. The fall had occurred, and the great sin sown by humankind had taken root. Everything changed forever, and the echo of human choice, like an ominous bell, resonated in every living creature, every stone, every river. Then the whispers began to grow louder. Ancient tales spread among the people, speaking of heavenly beings who descended to earth, mysterious watchers. Their presence inspired both awe and terror. Men called them gods, and women saw them as saviors. These beings, meant to observe humanity, began to transgress the boundaries of their divine mission. "Look, how beautiful are the daughters of men," they whispered to each other, consumed by the allure of beauty and carnal passion. In a sacred place, high on Mount Hermon, 200 of them made a secret pact. They swore to descend to earth and never return to the heavens until they took earthly women as their wives. Thus began an era of corruption that would forever change the face of the world. And when they descended, their arrival was cloaked in glory. Men saw them as gods whose garments shone like starlight. Their voices rumbled like distant thunder, and their eyes pierced the human soul with indescribable power. Women desired them, and men felt fear. They were not ordinary beings, and their presence resonated in the hearts of all. Human women, enchanted by their unearthly beauty, gave themselves to them completely. And the children born of these unions were extraordinary. They grew to gigantic size, possessed incomparable strength, and an arrogance surpassing all that was known to humans. These were the Nephilim, giants, the first renowned heroes. With their might, they began to subjugate humanity, enslaving earthly creatures, and soon became the first tyrants, known and feared throughout the world. Statues were erected in their honor in the cities. Their names were pronounced with reverence, yet also with fear. And still, something was deeply wrong. They did not age like ordinary humans. Their hunger was insatiable, and soon they turned against all living things. First, they began to devour the fruits of the earth, seeking sustenance. When food became scarce, they turned their wrath against humanity itself. Fertile plains, once places of abundance, became camps of slavery. The Nephilim demanded bloody tribute, and frightened humanity submitted to their will. Those who came from the heavens now sank into corruption and took possession of the earth. Knowledge, bestowed by those who were meant to be mere observers, now served as a means of control. Sorcery, astrology, incantations, genetic manipulation, hallucinogenic herbs, and military weapons spread among humanity like a deadly disease. Corruption spread among humanity like a malignant tumor. The sky began to darken with an ominous haze. Azazel, one of the chief leaders of the fallen angels, known as the Watchers, taught men the craft of forging swords, creating shields, and making armor. He also instructed women in the art of seduction and the use of cosmetics for power, teaching them to summon the elements of the earth. The knowledge gained transformed into omnipotence, and omnipotence, in turn, was used to establish control. War became a fine art, and carnal lust a new religion. Human blood profusely irrigated the stones like wine, thereby nourishing gods and their devoted followers. The world steadily plunged into an abyss of all-consuming destruction. At the very heart of this moral decay, a new race of abominable creatures emerged, Hybrids, abominations, true monsters, born from the unnatural union between the offspring of the Watchers and earthly women. Bestial beings possessing incredible strength, repulsive appearances, eyes that seethed with untamed fury, iron skin encased in armor, and voices capable of driving any mortal insane. These distorted and terrifying creations belonged to no known natural order. Divine creation was being defiled, and the wounds inflicted by the fall continued to bleed and widen. The world was inevitably crumbling, and humanity, blinded by sin, did not grasp the full depth of the abyss into which it had fallen. The fateful choice made in the time of Adam and Eve echoed through generations. And now the consequences of this choice were clearer than ever before. Humanity, once created in the image and likeness of God, was becoming a miserable shadow of its former self. The human heart turned away from divine light. Faith became an ancient legend, and the Creator's name was whispered only. Pride displaced obedience, and wisdom yielded to corrupting curiosity. Humanity passionately craved power, total control, and eternal life. It was in this insatiable quest that he encountered the Watchers. They descended from the celestial heights, shrouded in divine splendor. Their faces glowed like bright flames, and their eyes reflected the shimmer of distant stars. They appeared in a halo of glory, and the world bowed before them. They brought with them knowledge that humanity should never have possessed. The mysteries of metalworking, the secrets of forging blades, methods of using precious stones, the healing properties of herbs, the arrangement of constellations, and the control of winds. People hailed them as teachers and then as gods. In their honor, they erected lavish altars, built majestic towers and temples reaching into the clouds, and offered them generous sacrifices. Women adorned their bodies with exquisite gold and rare incense, seeking to gain favor with the celestial beings, and the Watchers, consumed by excessive pride, gladly accepted this worship. What began as simple instruction escalated into rampant worship. What was once wisdom transformed into abhorrent idolatry. Each of the Watchers took control of a specific domain and gathered a legion of devoted followers around himself. Azazel, a renowned warrior, taught people to forge weapons and create robust armor, and iron came to dominate the earth unchallenged. Semyaza, possessing incredible power, revealed the hidden mysteries of words and secret arts. Barakiel guided men by the stars and bestowed upon women the power of sorcerous incantations. Kokabil, radiating an unearthly glow, taught people to read celestial signs and control the capricious weather, and many others, each with their own heresy, molded humanity in their distorted image. Thus the Watchers became absolute kings over all nations. Their voices resonated authoritatively in assemblies. Their names were solemnly carved on stone tablets, their images skillfully sculpted from gold and ivory. People called them sons of heaven, and the true name of God was consigned to oblivion. Once, people turned away from the heavens, forgetting the true God. Their gaze was no longer directed at the Creator, but towards the mountain peaks where the Watchers dwelt. Thunderclaps were perceived as signs of their wrath, and gusts of wind as whispers of their presence. And from the union of the Watchers with earthly women, giants were born, offspring of corruption, beings combining angelic might and human flesh. These monsters, possessing immense strength and untamed fury, struck with their enormous size and distorted souls. Their voices made the hills tremble, and their eyes blazed like tongues of flame. They devoured the fruits of the earth, livestock, and even humans. When there was nothing left to consume, they turned against each other, and the earth was stained with the blood of the giants. But even in their fall, they remained objects of worship. Nations erected colossal statues imitating their likeness. effigies with iron wings and stern stone faces. People sacrificed their sons and daughters, and around their temples ritual dances were performed and hymns sung in languages forsaken by the heavens. Violence became the universal law, justice was trampled, and love and compassion vanished from human hearts. Power became the new faith, and brute force the new deity. Kings sought counsel from the Watchers, priests served idols, and magicians summoned evil spirits, sowing chaos and destruction. The world became a boiling cauldron of sin, and the very breath of life was defiled. The Watchers ruled humanity with an iron fist, showering them with false promises of glory. They commanded the changing seasons, controlled the weather, and directed the thoughts of people like a blind flock. And people served them with boundless devotion, believing these false gods could grant them immortality. Entire cities were erected in honor of the Watchers, temples built on the high seas, palaces carved into cliffs, and altars stained with blood and strewn with incense. Prayers once offered to the Creator now dissipated as smoke at the thrones of the Watchers. The heavens themselves seemed to dim in shame, and the stars faded in sorrow. Loyal angels silently watched what was happening, and the earth trembled under the weight of abomination. The human heart, corrupted and hardened, no longer sought redemption. Evil became its second nature, and good, a rare and almost forgotten relic of the past. Generations of people were born in darkness and died in idolatry. The righteous were persecuted, the innocent sacrificed, and the powerful reveled in the blood of the weak. And yet, amidst the universal decline and despair, there remained a small group of people, almost forgotten, who held the memory of the Creator in their hearts. These broken-hearted people, living in the shadow of the giants, continued to whisper ancient prayers. Their gaze was fixed on the heavens, their voices cried out for justice, and the Creator heard their pleas. From the heights of heaven, he looked upon the work of his hands and saw that the earth was steeped in corruption. Nothing pure remained, neither thoughts, nor feelings, nor blood. The Watchers defiled creation, and humanity became a prisoner of its own inevitable downfall. In that moment, the silence of the celestial vault was shattered. Currents of air stirred, and the watery expanses of the abyss trembled. The era of long-suffering was drawing to a close. The Almighty rose from his throne, and loyal angels froze, awaiting his word. For when false idols reign on earth, the true God prepares judgment, and when the gates of heaven open, nothing can remain hidden from sight. The rumble of justice approached, and all the earth trembled, sensing the voice that once created the world, the very voice that would now appear to cleanse it. And the heavens froze in silent observation. But not all remained silent. There lived a man who walked with God. His name was Enoch. He was a descendant of Seth and did not embrace earthly ways. His gaze pierced beyond the veil of the mundane. His dreams were prophetic. In one vision, he saw the throne of God and heard, "Go and proclaim the coming judgment." Enoch stood before the people and declared, "The Most High sees. Nothing will be hidden. The Watchers will face judgment. The giants will fall." But people merely scoffed at him. They ridiculed his words and tried to silence him. Enoch, however, felt no fear. He recorded everything on stone and parchment. His writings spoke of portals, celestial spheres, angelic legions, and the day of great retribution. And one day, Enoch disappeared. He was no longer seen among mortals. It was said that God took him, delivering him from the evil that threatened to consume all existence. And his disappearance felt like the fading of the last spark in the night. Without warning or restraint, the Watchers continued their evil deeds. Forests began to wither. The earth's crust trembled. Stars lost their brilliance. River currents changed their courses. Nature groaned under the burden of decay. The sky, once azure, became dark and gray, and the currents of air carried ill omens. The cry of the earth reached the heavens, and the Most High summoned his holy angels. What has occurred cannot continue. The watchers will be bound, their offspring destroyed, and the earth cleansed. The archangel Uriel was sent to Enoch, who was already in heaven, to record the judgment against the fallen angels. Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel prepared to execute the judgment, but on earth decay continued to spread, like an invisible contagion. People erected towers piercing the clouds, striving to touch the heavens. They claimed a desire to reach the gods, but in their hearts burned only the lust to become like them. Women sacrificed their children to the Nephilim, believing the blood of innocence would grant them strength and protection. Blood cried out from the ground. It sounded like thunder echoing in God's ears. The Watchers taught people the art of elemental subjugation. They controlled fire and wind, shaped weather, and altered seasons. But every spell uttered, every secret revealed, further disrupted the balance of creation. In those times, when the balance of creation was disturbed more than ever before, the world burned with sorcery, cruelty, and darkness. The seas were defiled, crops withered long before harvest, and the sky was shrouded in a pall of smoke. The silence of the night vanished, and the gusts of wind carried distant cries, the wails of lost souls and echoes of heavenly voices. The earth's crust cracked, as if striving to vomit forth the evil that defiled it. In the heavens, lightning flashed without thunder, revealing signs of a power gathering beyond the clouds. All creation seemed to sense the approaching event. Birds flocked westward, beasts abandoned their shelters, and even the air seemed to thicken, as if inhaling the harbinger of judgment. Even the giants, consumed by pride, gazed at the heavens and felt fear for what they could not comprehend. Heavenly angels watched, preparing to execute the final will, and the Most High declared, "The time for cleansing has come. The earth will be washed, and the blood of the innocent avenged." The Watchers, who corrupted flesh, will be cast into the abyss. The giants will fall under the onslaught of waves, and a new covenant will emerge from the waters. This decree echoed throughout the universe. The stars trembled, and the sea responded with furious turbulence. Clouds began to gather over mountain peaks like a celestial army. And amidst the thunderclaps and lightning, the name of the Lord resonated once more, for the destined judgment was inscribed even before the foundation of the world. And now the hour had come when God would wash the earth with the tears of heaven and the fire of justice. As the light of creation became a distant memory, corruption consumed the world. But amidst this chaos, one lineage still existed. The descendants of Seth, though diminished, preserved the memory of the Creator. They held on to hope, offered prayers, and taught their children that not all was lost. They spoke of a God who still saw, heard, and cared. Among them was one calm, righteous, and diligent man. While others sank into violence and depravity, he wandered among the trees and listened to the voice of the wind. His name was Noah. Noah tilled the earth with his calloused hands and looked at the world with a serene gaze. People mocked him, calling him old-fashioned, a dreamer stuck in ancient tales. But Noah held a secret that was revealed to him not by humans. He heard the voice of God. Wandering through the fields, he felt the presence of the Almighty, like a gentle breeze rustling through the leaves. He saw the sacred and small manifestations of life, in the rhythmic flow of the river, in the singing of birds, in the silence that followed thunderclaps. While the world plunged into madness, Noah cultivated faith. His sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, learned reverence for the Lord from him, even while living among a corrupt and cruel generation. While people worshipped false gods and the Nephilim ruled as tyrants, Noah and his family remained faithful, sustained by what the world had forgotten. And then, on a night unlike any other, the heavens opened. Darkness shimmered with hues unseen by humanity before. Lights danced like fiery rivers among the stars. Fiery rivers, flowing among the stars, seemed boundless. And then something powerful yet serene descended upon Noah. A voice, like thunderclaps mingled with gusts of wind, spoke in his mind. "The end of all flesh has come before me. The earth is filled with violence. Build yourself an ark of cypress wood." "Lord, how shall I do this?" Noah asked. "I will specify the dimensions and make my covenant with you," the voice replied. The next morning, Noah gathered his family. His face was filled with determination, and his eyes burned with the fire of faith. "God has spoken to me. A judgment in the form of a flood is coming. We must build an ark," he announced. His sons looked at their father in silence. A gentle breeze swept between them, as if confirming his words. Shem was the first to break the quiet. "If the Lord has commanded, we must obey." And the work began. Trees were cut down. Logs were hewn. The sound of axes echoed through valleys that had never before seen rain. The locals scoffed as they passed by. "Look at this madman. Who builds a ship where there is no sea?" But Noah paid no attention to the mockery. Drops of sweat ran down his face as he laid beam after beam. Every hammer blow was like a prayer. Every stake driven into the ground was a testament to faith. At the same time, the Nephilim ruled the cities with an iron fist. Men were forced to fight each other for sport. Children were sacrificed during horrific rituals. Women became servants to gods and giants. The Watchers' palaces, now defiled by their own corruption, became temples of fire and blood. Human kings, servants of the fallen angels, ruled with incredible cruelty, and the earth became a semblance of hell. But the heavens did not remain silent. The loyal angels began to act. The Most High ascended his throne for judgment and gave commands to his servants. Michael, the leader of the heavenly host, received the command, "Descend and destroy the giants." And he descended not as ordinary flame, but as a living storm, a whirlwind of light and power. Following him descended Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel, as well as countless legions of angels, armed with swords gleaming like lightning. The heavenly court convened, and a verdict was rendered. The heavens filled with silence as the Most High's verdict echoed. Not only the Watchers, the fallen angels, would be punished, but also their wives, the women who joined the rebellion and bore monsters. They were not innocent victims. They were accomplices. They were daughters of the earth, craving the radiance of the heavens. They tasted forbidden knowledge and became mothers of giants, queens of empires of destruction. While the Nephilim ruled with cruelty, the women reveled in power, worshipped as goddesses, revered as bearers of angelic strength. But the time for grace had ended. The Creator, in his justice, addressed the heavenly hosts. "Michael, commander of the celestial armies, bind the Watchers, judge the women, and cleanse the earth." "Judge the wicked and cleanse the earth," came the voice from heaven. And Michael, the leader of the heavenly host, accompanied by legions of light, descended to the earth. At his mere touch, mountain peaks trembled. The Watchers, the fallen angels, were overthrown and imprisoned beneath eternal rocks, sealed in darkness. But for those women who shared sin with the celestial beings, the punishment was different, filled with a peculiar horror. The beauty that once captivated angels' hearts was stripped from them. The allure that enticed celestial beings turned into utter darkness. Faces lost their radiance, voices turned into heart-wrenching wails, and tears filled the abyss. They became sirens, beings forever lost between worlds, belonging neither to humans nor to celestials. Their bodies became unnatural hybrids, half women, half shadows, and their cursed voices eternally echoed over the ocean waves, luring men to the same fate they had once chosen. Thus the wives of the Watchers transformed into daughters of the abyss, symbols of eternal temptation and retribution. But Michael's mission was not yet complete. There was a deeper corruption that had taken root on earth. The Nephilim, giants born from the union of angels and mortal women, ruled the world with unholy might. They devoured the flesh of humans and quenched their thirst with the blood of the innocent. Their cities were temples of cruelty, and their thrones altars of pain. Michael approached them silently and whispered unseen words, sowing seeds of doubt and discord. A divine breath spread the venom of division among the giants, and what was once a unified army turned into a field of betrayal. Brothers rose against brothers, accusing each other of seeking the angels' favor. Envy flared like a blaze, and the pride of the giants turned into madness. Thus began the fratricidal war among the Nephilim. The earth trembled beneath their footsteps, and the echo of battles resounded through the valleys. Mountains split from the fall of their bodies, and rivers of blood flooded the plains. Offspring of a forbidden union, they destroyed themselves by their own hands. Michael watched this from above. His mission required no sword, only justice. The pride of the Nephilim became the cause of their downfall, and God's judgment was executed through their own corruption. When the last giant fell, the winds stilled, the seas quieted, and the voices of the watchers' wives, transformed into sirens, wailed over the waves, mourning their fallen children and lost glory. Then Michael raised his sword. The firmament split with light, and the voice of God spoke again. Corruption is cut off from the earth. The time for judgment has come. The heavens froze, and the earth held its breath in anticipation of what was to come. The watchers, captured and overthrown, were bound by Michael and cast into caves of eternal darkness, into prisons of stone and fire, where they were to await the day of judgment. The world fell silent for a moment, but the air remained heavy. The waters, stored since creation, began to churn. Noah lifted his gaze to the sky. The wind shifted. The birds fell silent. And for the first time, thunder boomed without lightning. It was an omen, a countdown to judgment. The time for mercy had expired, and the distant sound of rain, yet unseen, was already audible in the celestial chambers. That sound was audible even in the most distant corners of the celestial vaults. Noah, uninterrupted, day after day, continued to diligently hammer, heedless of the scorching sun and the taunts of those around him. The ark grew, transforming in the eyes of the world into a colossal structure, a wooden fortress erected in the middle of a boundless plain like a house of salvation, amidst impending doom. 3 decks, countless compartments, and, as if obeying some silent call, animals began to arrive. They came from all corners of the earth, guided by an invisible instinct, as if obeying an ancient command. Lions walked beside gentle lambs. Snakes silently coiled, stripped of all venom. Eagles perched near doves. And it seemed impossible, yet it unfolded before the astonished eyes of people. But people remained deaf to warnings. Their mocking laughter still echoed through the surrounding villages. Feasts not only continued, but grew more frequent. Debauched orgies multiplied like a contagious disease. The name of the Most High was reviled in public squares and noisy taverns. Noah continued to preach, never ceasing his hammering. And as he worked, he wept, crying out to the wicked, "Repent, there is still time for salvation." But in response, he heard only scornful laughter. Women danced around blazing bonfires, and men sang hymns of praise to the Nephilim, their false gods of stone and flesh. But soon signs began to appear. The moon turned crimson like congealed blood. Wild beasts fled the forests in panic, as if sensing the approaching catastrophe. Winds blew simultaneously from east and west, emitting wails like lamentations. A light rain watered long-forgotten desert lands. The earth trembled beneath the feet of the proud, yet human hearts remained hardened. Even in the face of obvious signs, humanity continued to mock the unseen. And so the seventh day arrived. The ark was complete, still and majestic, like an altar erected before the face of destiny itself. God declared for the last time, "Enter, you and all your family, into the ark. For I have found you alone righteous in this wicked generation." Noah said nothing. He simply gazed into the distance at the horizon, and the horizon seemed to answer him in kind. He gathered his family. One by one, they entered the enormous vessel without fanfare or farewells. The silent obedience of the chosen sharply contrasted with the clamor and din of the crowd. "Hey, coward, come have fun with us," they shouted. Noah merely closed his eyes, and a tear rolled down the wood he himself had consecrated with tears of faith and hope. And a miracle occurred. The door of the ark began to close by itself, slowly and solemnly, as if obeying the will of the heavens themselves. A muffled rumble echoed throughout the valley. Birds froze in flight. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Noah stood silently inside the ark. Only the sound of creaking wood served as the sole evidence of the impending change. Outside, the laughter ceased. Fear began to stir in the eyes of the mockers. Where is the flood that this mad prophet foretold? But the heavens no longer smiled. The first drop fell, a heavy, solitary drop, which struck the dusty ground and dissolved like a divine tear. Then another and another. The laughter stopped entirely. Children scattered in fright. Men stared at the sky in astonishment. The wind roared with renewed force. Clouds swirled, forming giant eyes of vapor and lightning. And then the firmament split open. The floodgates of heaven opened. And what crashed upon the earth was no longer just rain. It was judgment. Water fell with fury, dense and alive, as if possessing its own consciousness. Lightning pierced the celestial veil like spears hurled by warring angels. The earth trembled, and torrential currents burst forth from beneath the earth, exposing deep wounds in the soil. Creation, once perfect, began to crumble before the face of its Creator. The outer world was ready to prostrate itself before its Creator. Inside the saving ark, Noah offered prayers. His voice was a quiet whisper, lost in the roar of the raging waves. Animals, gripped by primal terror, wailed, roared, and desperately thumped against the walls of their temporary refuge. But the ark steadfastly remained afloat, sustained by a power beyond human comprehension. Raindrops turned into enormous waves, waves into boundless seas, and these seas mercilessly swallowed the world. Roads and paths disappeared beneath the water. Homes and structures dissolved into the abyss. Entire cities were wiped from the face of the earth. Outside, there was universal panic. Those who once scoffed and mocked now cried out in despair, "Noah, open the door, let us in, forgive us. We believe now." But the door of the ark was securely sealed by the hand of the Lord God Himself. No human force could break that seal. But now it was too late. True faith is born not from fear of imminent destruction, but from sincere repentance. And the time for repentance had irrevocably passed. The waters rose with relentless speed. What was once solid ground turned into a bottomless abyss. Centuries-old trees fell like fragile branches, unable to withstand the force of divine judgment. Towers erected in honor of the gigantic Nephilim crumbled like sandcastles under the gusts of divine wrath. Even once proud mountains gradually began to vanish beneath the watery shroud. The cries of desperate people mingled with the deafening roar of the flood, creating a terrible symphony of despair, thunder, and approaching judgment. The few surviving giants, once revered as gods, desperately tried to resist the elements. They furiously lifted enormous rocks, defying the raging waves and roaring angrily at the sky. But the force unleashed upon them was not merely water, it was retribution itself. One of them, consumed by mad pride, cried out in a booming voice, "We are eternal." And in that very instant, a wall of water swallowed him, forever silencing the arrogance of those who considered themselves immortal. Altars of the fallen watchers were torn from the earth, idols and statues collapsed, godless inscriptions vanished beneath the weight of the abyss. Corrupt knowledge, sorcery, and unrestrained lust, all were irrevocably consumed by the elements. It seemed the entire earth wept, washed by tears and fury. God's justice, stubbornly ignored for generations, now crashed upon the earth like a devastating avalanche. What was once mockery and derision now turned into a wail of despair. What was pride and arrogance was now replaced by all-consuming terror. Inside the ark, Noah held his wife tightly. Ham, trying to suppress a tremor of fear, gripped Japheth's shoulders firmly. Shem, looking at the ceiling that creaked under the storm's onslaught, quietly murmured, "Father, God kept his word." "Yes, but my heart aches for them," Noah replied. Outside there was a deafening clamor. For 40 days and 40 nights the water did not cease to rise. Each dawn was darker than the last. Each thunderclap sounded like the roar of celestial monsters. Lightning rent the sky like swords in an unseen battle. The living earth mourned its own decay. There were no more cities, no music, no feasts. The fallen watchers were bound in the abyss of darkness. The Nephilim rested at the bottom of the sea, transformed into nightmares, drowned in chaos. All humanity was reduced to one family, a small remnant surrounded by wood, faith, and hope for salvation. The world was buried under a deluge, a world where the tree of knowledge, unwavering faith, and bright hope intertwined. The waters rose above the most impregnable peaks, such as Ararat and Mount Si, swallowing all mountain peaks of our planet without exception. And then, a ringing silence fell. No more desperate cries of terror were heard, no more instruments of war boomed. Only the wail of the wind, the steady sound of rain, and the creaking of the ark drifting alone in the boundless expanse of water. Inside the ark, days indistinguishably replaced nights, and time seemed to dissolve in the continuous rocking on the waves. The sounds emitted by the animals filled the entire interior, creating a unique living chorus within this floating tomb. On the surface of the water floated fragments of trees, tattered clothing, ruins of temples, and entire cities. It was a true graveyard of the former world. What was once a symbol of dominion and grandeur now became merely a distant memory. Human pride proved too heavy to be saved and sank to the bottom. But the Most High had not forgotten his promise. Above the thick clouds, the light of hope still shone. Heavenly angels watched the ark with silent reverence. For what survived within was not merely mortal flesh, but the future itself, the seed of a new human civilization, an echo of divine grace. Gradually, the fury of the elements began to subside. The rain lost its former strength. Thunder retreated like a defeated beast shamefully leaving the battlefield. Clouds slowly parted, revealing a golden aperture in the heavens. A ray of sunlight for the first time in many days pierced through the veil of mist, a reminder that life still endured. The ark floated majestically and alone, like a witness at the boundary of two worlds. The old world was condemned, and a new one was yet to be born, and for a time, the entire earth paused in anticipation. The sun timidly returned to this silent world. The ark still rocked on the waters that covered the whole earth. Noah continued to keep faith as days turned into weeks, and weeks into long months. And then one day, the wind carried a new scent to him, a scent not of death, but of hope and coming change. Then Noah released first a raven and then a dove. And when the dove returned, holding an olive branch in its beak, hope blossomed in the hearts of the ark's inhabitants. Filled with reverence, Noah knelt, raised his calloused hands to the sky, and offered a prayer of thanks. The waters began to recede, revealing mountain peaks. The ark gently settled on Mount Ararat, like a heart finally finding peace after a storm. And then God spoke to Noah, "Go out from the ark, and with all the animals, be fruitful, and fill the earth once more." The door of the ark opened wide, and bright light streamed inside. Animals emerged into freedom, stepping onto land that would soon turn green and come alive again. And Noah slowly, cautiously, stepped onto the earth. That very earth, which had so recently been cursed, now received a blessing once more. Noah erected an altar, the first altar in the new world, and there, in silence, he offered a sacrifice to God, who executes judgment but also grants renewal. The aroma of the sacrifice ascended to the heavens, and God declared, "Never again will I destroy all living creatures in such a way. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, day and night will never cease." And then the sign of the covenant appeared, a rainbow, arcing across the heavens, an eternal reminder that justice can wound, but mercy always heals. The wrath of heaven is like a storm that strikes with devastating force, yet mercy possesses a healing power capable of mending the deepest wounds. This became a covenant established between the celestial powers and the earthly dwelling. The earth, despite its wounds, once again bloomed with life. Sprouts pushed through the damp stones, birds filled the air with their melodic trills, rivers found new paths for their waters. Life, like a gentle whisper, began its new existence. Cold nights brought forth tales and hope for a better future. Noah's sons toiled tirelessly. Their wives gathered roots, planted seeds, and the hearth fire once again glowed brightly. Noah realized that evil still lurked in the depths of the human soul. However, he also believed that God's love possessed immeasurably greater power. The ancient world, inhabited by giants and fallen angels, was buried beneath the waters. And a new world, more humble and pure, emerged under the arch of a heavenly promise. For the flood was not merely an act of destruction, it became a symbol of rebirth. And the ark, more than just a refuge, transformed into a womb that birthed a new humanity. The earth was cleansed of defilement, but the human heart still needed transformation and spiritual purification.